So I'd like to introduce everyone to Perttu Lähteenlahti. He is a senior developer advocate at RevenueCat. He is a React Native expert helping developers build sustainable and monetized mobile apps.
Thanks. Yeah. Nice to see all of you. I'm gonna soon share my screen. Just gonna briefly mention. So, well, you already heard about Shipathon, the hackathon. RevenueCat is behind that. RevenueCat is my employer, and we have a very simple goal as a company. We want to help developers make money with their apps, and that means, for example, iOS apps or Android apps, or like monetizing both of them, but also web apps. Like we support those now as well, and we have. You can kind of think of us as the Stripe equivalent of like in-app purchases and subscriptions on mobile apps. But you can also use Stripe together with RevenueCat, so that like comparison doesn't really work. And I'm gonna just share my screen. So this is gonna be pretty much hands-on today. I'm first gonna let's see. Let's actually try if I just share my full screen first, and I'll make this a bit bigger. Hopefully this looks all right. Okay. Yeah, this is just the RevenueCat website. We do like all kinds of things for mobile apps, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. But when I say that we support mobile apps, that means that we have like SDKs, development kits for all kinds of programming languages and frameworks. So we have React Native, we have Swift, we have for Android, we have Kotlin, we have Flutter, we have Unity. Cordova, whatever. Like we support a bunch of different platforms. So even if you're not like necessarily a web developer, or you've done like native Android development, we have an SDK for that. And if you are, for example, let's say that you're a web developer, we also have stuff for monetizing your web app. And today I'm going to talk mainly about the React Native one, because I would say that if you have experience from web development and React development, those are pretty much transferable to React Native world. And I'm going to show actually an app that I built with Bolt earlier today, and just briefly mention what that is. And then I'm going to show you how to basically configure stuff so that you can get subscriptions for App Store and Play Store in that app on I'm going to be running on iOS simulator, but an example is going to be an iOS app, but you could do that on Android as well. And if at any point you have any questions or are going too fast or anything, just put it in chat. I'll try to pay attention and notice. And if I don't, just someone steal the microphone or whatever and I'll explain further along. But easiest is just get started. So earlier today, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so the font size isn't that big. I used an app called Bolt. Let's see, actually there. Which is basically the same as asking just a large language model to build me an app. And it built me an app which like, it shows you mountains. There's a gallery of mountains. It works very nicely in the web view, but this is an Expo app. So that means it's a React Native app that I can also run on my iOS. And the subscription button here doesn't do anything because we don't have subscriptions in this app. So the idea is, of course, then that, okay, we want to do two things. We want to get this onto our iOS device, or in this case, iOS simulator, but we could also run it on a device. And we want to add subscriptions to it. Or we might want to do also the same for Android. So we need three things for that. First, we need a RevenueCat account, which is free to make. Just go to RevenueCat.com, create it, and it's free to use until you make like $2,500 a month. And then we take like 1% of the revenue that you make from the subscriptions or in-app purchases that you have in the app. So technically, the bigger the bill you get from us, that means the more money you're making with your app. Like that's how it works for us. So you don't have to pay anything to use us. You will, however, if you were to release an iOS app, for example, you will have to pay the iOS developer cost, which is €99, $99 a year. So it's a bit of an investment, but it might be worth it if you're really into like interested in building mobile apps. On Android, you can get a little started with a little bit cheaper. So Android developer license is like one-time cost, so not yearly like the Apple one, and it's $25 a month. So if you're like thinking like, okay, I just want to try out mobile development, I don't necessarily want to commit to it now, getting started with Android is probably easier. And I don't know how many of you have built like React Native apps. You can actually integrate our SDK and build the app already without having necessarily developer license for either one of for Android or iOS. However, in order to get the subscriptions, you do need those because you need to be configuring some products. So I'm gonna like, I've already exported this project and I actually have it here. And I'm gonna make these as a bit bigger so we can actually see how things work. And we're just gonna see that it's the same app on both web. So this is a simulator. It looks pretty much the same. On the web version, it seems to have a dark mode. The subscribe button doesn't do anything. There's a gallery, doesn't do anything. You can take a look at it. And then you have settings which says that you're on the free, you are not subscribed to premium plan. And that's it. And we're going to make it like the code changes that we're actually going to make are going to be really, really simple. You're going to be surprised how simple they are to make in order to monetize your app. Where most of our work will actually happen that we need to do is once we created a RevenueCat account, we'll get to the RevenueCat dashboard that looks kind of like this. It will show how much you have like active subscriptions, how much monthly recurring revenue you're making. And it pulls all of this data from App Store Connect, which is Apple's developer like dashboard where you basically handle and release your apps. And then also Google Play Console, which is Google's version of that. And I've already created a project here called React Native example in this case. And we can take a look at this. So I need to connect this first with my App Store Connect account. So when I have an App Store Connect account, I just have to go to appstoreconnect.apple.com and it will take me to purchase that. And then I have a bunch of apps that I've uploaded there throughout the years. And I've created one example app. So this needs to be created after you've purchased React Native. Yes, after you've purchased your Apple developer account. And similarly, this is what the Google dashboard looks like. I can take a look at all the apps. I'm going to find this Bolt example, which is actually the same as the one here, the Frontend Queens example. But unfortunately, Google doesn't allow me to rename the app before I actually submit it with the real name. So it just chose the Bolt example as the name because that's what I built it with Bolt, and Bolt for some reason thought that's a good name for an app. And you need to do a little bit of configuration here, like provide information about your app and whatnot. So basically get it ready. We're not going to do those now because those could actually take some amount of time. And also, before Google allows you to release your app, for example, you need to complete all of these and you need to have at least like 5 people beta testing your app before you can release it. But you can still configure stuff. And what we'll be doing, we'll be configuring the subscriptions for this. But we need to first like connect both of these to RevenueCat dashboard. And that's pretty easy to do. They're called in the project settings. Oh, actually, sorry. Apps and providers, we have this called app configuration. So add app config, and we select App Store, for example, and we then have to provide, for example, the app name, the app bundle ID, which we can find here. Or we should be able to find it here. Yeah, there, exactly there. So it's a long string, but I've done that already once, so I'm not going to do it again. We're going to have to upload a little bit of documentation, a little bit of like these PH files, which connect App Store Connect to RevenueCat dashboard. This all might feel like it's a lot, but we have really good documentation on how to do that. And you only have to do it once for the whole like RevenueCat account. Like you can then submit as many apps as you want and it won't take that long. Actually, it's just it basically takes any time after you've done the initial configuration. So, for example, with the iOS, connect apps and web providers. This has all the information you need. Where do I find my secret key? Where do I find my app purchase key? Where do I find App Store Connect API key? And there's a full setup also how to do this here. Set up your account, configure your products. We have videos and we have documentation. So this setup is really easy to do as long as you follow the instructions, depending on which one you're using. Same goes for if we go back here and we look at like Google Play Store has a similar thing. So you have to give the app name, you have to give the package name, which is the same as bundle ID on iOS. And then this thing called service account credentials JSON, which we have instructions how to generate that. And you only have to do that once, and then you can start configuring the apps. But after that, what we need to do is we of course need to configure our products or our subscriptions. Products could be also, it could be either subscriptions, so something that, for example, every month user pays $2 to use the service, or it could be a single time in-app purchase. So for example, they pay one time $6 and that unlocks the access to the app completely. We support both of those. Nowadays, of course, subscriptions are way more common in apps. You've probably noticed that. But we have support for those, both of these. In our current project, this one, we will be making a subscription. That's why we have the subscribe button there. And the easiest way to do that is just to start with the product catalog. So the first thing we need to do, I've already configured actually 2 subscriptions, but I'm just going to show how easy it is to create one. Is I'm going to create a new product, and it asks me there that do I want to what kind of identifier it should have. Alternatively, if I don't want to put this manually here, I could also do this, that I go in. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger as well. I could go to the subscription section in my app in App Store Connect and see that there's one subscription group, and there's one subscription there, which we actually did see here already. So that's this one. These two are the same. And localization. So instead of manually creating it in here, we can also create it in App Store Connect and let RevenueCat just import that. But let's make subscription yearly. That's a good one, I think. Yeah, yearly 12. And we're going to call that yearly subscription. And now we get to choose. So product type subscription is of course something that recurs every month, user base until they stop like being subscribed. Consumable is a subscription, is a in-app purchase that once you buy it, user uses it and then they no longer have access to it. So this could be, for example, virtual currencies, or in games. If you in mobile games, this is very often used, is that you buy like XP or health or whatever in a game, for example. Non-consumable, that could be, for example, that you have your app has a dark mode, but you have to pay for that. So user, for example, buys a non-consumable that then unlocks the app for them to use that in dark mode, for example. And then you have a non-renewing subscription, which is basically the same as subscription, but it's just like it happens for 1 month. And after that, it doesn't automatically recur again. You might want to use that in some cases, but those are also pretty rare. So now I created that product, and it actually tells me that, do you want to create this in App Store Connect as well? Since we couldn't find any matching products in App Store Connect. And I'm going to just click that. It's going to ask me a few other questions. So for example, how long does the subscription take? I'm going to take the 1 year. And it's going to be part of the premium subscription group, and it's going to be auto-renewable subscription. And I'm just going to create that product. So we don't actually have to do this configuration in App Store Connect either. So if we refresh here, we should see 2 subscriptions. Yeah. So now we have 2 subscriptions. We have 1 month premium and yearly subscription. And the status on these in order for them to show up correctly in our app, needs to be ready to submit. This one, for example, is missing metadata. So to see what we're actually missing from there, we haven't set availability or subscription price. We're also missing localization. So we need to do those in order for everything to work. But in this case, I'm not going to add a yearly subscription. We're going to work with the existing monthly subscription that I've created before. But once you've added those, which are like availability is just the countries, you're going to have the subscription available. Subscription price is, of course, the price. And you get to choose from pre-made custom price sets. And then you need to provide a screenshot of the subscription. And the good thing about this is that when you do need this subscription, you don't necessarily have to take a screenshot of your app. Let's say that you're just still building it, you're still building your app. You can actually download the RevenueCat app, which looks like this. And we have this cool thing here that if you go, for example, I'm going to take this example. There's a way to preview paywalls. So this is the paywall. What I'm going to explain soon what paywalls are that we're going to have in our app. You can take a screenshot in the RevenueCat app and just put that there without having even built your app yet, if you want to like get everything working. But a correctly configured monthly subscription looks like so. There's subscription prices, there's all countries, there's a screenshot. Well, this screenshot is from a different app completely. Apple doesn't actually care. They do care when you submit the app for the review, but before that, you just need some screenshot there in order for it to go the stage which says ready to submit. And in Google Play, it's a pretty much similar thing. So there's this monetized with Play section. You have to go to the products part, and there, actually, I could make this bit bigger as well. You go to the subscriptions, and I've configured one subscription here as well. Pretty much the same thing. You configure product ID, product name, you configure the pricing and whatnot, where it's available, if it has unpaid trials and whatnot. Or you can alternatively let RevenueCat handle that by going to the products and then adding new from here, or just importing. Either or. It really depends how you want to do it. But we're now pretty much happy with the App Store and with the one product that we have. Actually, let's go back to product catalog. So we have this monthly subscription premium is ready to submit. And then there's this one thing called one entitlement. And that's another concept of RevenueCat that you need to take a look at it. So entitlements are basically a way to determine that what level of access the user has. So in this case, I've renamed the entitlement to be premium, and it actually says that access to premium cat pictures, but we can just change that to be access to premium mountain pictures, I guess. And what this means is that when a user purchases a subscription that has this entitlement connected to them, we can, in the app, check if the user has purchased a product. It could be any subscription, which unlocks this level of entitlement. Checks that, and we can say that, okay, now we can show things in the UI based on this subscription. And that's the only thing it means. So it's basically a way to limit the user's access to certain features. Let's say that you had an app which it shows like 3 pictures of mountains, and you want to have it so that the rest 15 pictures of the mountains are behind a premium entitlement. So you call the RevenueCat SDK that does this user who's using the app have this entitlement? If they do not, then don't show the pictures. And if they do, then show the pictures. And that's way easier than if you were to, for example, build the subscription logic by yourself. You don't have to do backend to check these. You don't have to do anything. You can just like call the RevenueCat SDK, which we're soon going to see. And then there's one more concept, which is the so-called offerings. So this is a way to group products together. So for example, I have here a monthly package is part of the default offering, but I could add like the yearly also here, or I could add the Android package. And this means just that now if a user has, let's say that they have your app on both Android and iOS, and they they purchase a subscription for premium monthly subscription or whatever for an iOS, if they then use it on an Android device, because we have a way of like detecting if the user is the same, we can unlock that access that they get with the premium access also on the Android device. But also, if we just want to like categorize that on a default offering, we show, for example, monthly, yearly, and like 3-month subscriptions. That's also possible. So choose which kind of products are shown. Then we could make another offering, which is, for example, a loyal customer or something. And for them, we could have products with the different price level that is cheaper. And we can then decide that for those users, we show it on different case. So you can do like A/B testing on which kind of pricing levels, for example, work. But then we, of course, need the user to pay for that. And for that, RevenueCat has something called paywalls. So paywall as a concept is very simple. It's a thing that comes between your user and your app that limits them from accessing certain features unless they pay for them. And I've created one paywall here, but you can create multiple paywalls. You can have as many paywalls as you want. You can fully customize them. Like we have a bunch of pre-made paywalls, as you can see here. You can customize them however you like. And for example, in some of these, you can say that, okay, I want there to be monthly and yearly, or I want there to be just this one, for example, the Get Cat GPT Plus, which is just a yearly subscription. Yeah, there's a question. What security considerations should developers keep in mind when implementing in-app purchases? That's a good one. Well, actually, with like when you're using RevenueCat, you don't like if you have like things which like most of the stuff happens in the app itself. For example, you have like certain views, you have certain features that you don't want users to using. You can handle that all with RevenueCat on the client side, and that's already pretty much secure by itself. But let's say that you had for example, your app would call a backend that then calls, for example, ChatGPT to generate something. You would, of course, want to limit that so that even if user somehow manages to spoof or fake that they have a premium access, that they can't call that API. So for that, we actually do have like you can create a secret API key, which you put on your backend, and you use that key, for example, so that every time your users call your API, you check the user ID, and then you take the secret API key, and with that, you call RevenueCat's services to check that if that user has the entitlement, for example, on your backend. So that way you can protect those routes or calling certain features, calling certain services without having to, for example, you don't have to do that on client side, which is unsafe, but you can do it on a server side and just check from RevenueCat services if the user actually has access to those things. So we have that kind of a functionality. And then there was a second question. Can you give some tips how to make sure Apple won't reject your app with in-app purchases? Yes. These pretty much apply for both Google and Apple. So first thing is to like add all the information that they ask here, all the screenshots. The screenshots have to match exactly how your app is built. You can't have placeholder things. You can't have, for example, wording beta anywhere, anything like that. Your app has to be as close as possible to finish that it would technically get released. And when you add, for example, subscriptions, these can be submitted separately, but don't do that. Because the thing is, if you submit these separately, the thing is that Apple will review these subscriptions, but then they will notice that your app wasn't actually submitted. So they will just reject these, which causes all kinds of complications. So the easiest thing is to just leave these subscriptions to ready to submit state, go through the prepare for submission so that everything is good. Like in this case, if I say add for review, it's gonna contain like these all things are missing. If I were to fill these, then it would just ask me that this app, it seems to contain subscriptions. Is that true? You submit it with that, and probably they will be fine with it. So They will go through all of the things you have here, all of the things you have in the app, very detailed. Google is pretty much the same nowadays. They used to be way more lenient, but nowadays Google also goes through all the things you write in the Google Play console, and they also check the app. So as long as you don't have things mentioned, for example, in the description or promotional text, like saying that your app does this and this thing when it actually doesn't, then you should be good to go. Apple won't reject you. And also, if your app is like a complete clone of something else, or if there's like when App Store was first released, there was a lot of apps which were like beer drinking simulator, or something like that, or a lighter or whatever. Those kind of apps, they try to maintain certain quality in the App Store, so they will reject apps that are like way too simple or way too common. Usually, if you're building something that is at least somewhat complex, you won't run into that problem. But it is a possibility that Apple says that, hey, there's already apps that are exactly like this. But other than that, should be build a unique app, submit all the information, and Apple will most likely approve you. Same goes for Google. Yeah, but all right, yeah. So paywalls. I've configured this. So RevenueCat's paywall builder, you can customize this fully. And once you make changes, you can just like publish the changes. And as soon as the user opens the app again, they will have these changes visible with them. So the nice thing about this is that you don't have to hard code these paywalls yourself. You don't have to hard code like how to show the price or anything. You can just like use this, say that, okay, in this field, show the price per period, and that's it. Or add the features. You can write these all and say that, okay, I want to have these features. You can change the pictures. You could strip everything out of this view and just put a button that says buy, and that you can do even that. So you can do a lot of customization with the RevenueCat paywall builder, and without writing any code, which is it's a wonderful thing, because in reality, you don't want to be spending a lot of time like hard coding UIs for paywalls, and even like monetization as well. Like the way we try to do this thing is so that it is as simple as possible for you to monetize your app, because your business and what you're doing with your app is mostly just building features for users that they want to use. Users don't care about like how nice your paywall is. Like it might get them to purchase it, sure, but you're spending most of the time more valuably if you're actually building something users want, instead of figuring out how purchases and subscriptions work on iOS and Android. But yeah, so there we have our, let's put that for the side now, the paywall builder for now. So we've configured everything in RevenueCat, we've configured everything in App Store Connect, also Android if we want it. Now we just want our app to start showing those. And that's pretty easy. We're gonna only add I'm gonna share this project later on, but we're gonna change 3 files at like three different pieces of code. And the first one is that we need to initialize the RevenueCat SDK. So because this is an Expo app, we're gonna find the root level component that we have, the most root level component there is, and it's the layout in most Expo default apps. And we just need to call useEffect and then purchases, so React Native purchases. We have to install this. So we have to install 2 packages. So let's take a look at it. Let's put that a little bit smaller. We can find here the 2 packages that I need to purchase. So React Native purchases, that's the RevenueCat SDK for React Native, and React Native purchases UI, which is also RevenueCat purchases package. But this one contains, the purchase UI contains all the parts needed for the paywalls, and this just contains everything needed to actually purchasing things. You need always the React Native purchases. You can get by without the React Native purchase UI if you end up building the paywall yourself, if you want to hand code it. In most cases, you don't want to do this, so mostly you're probably going to be installing both of these packages. So then when we import the purchases from React Native purchases, we need to set it. And well, cursor is already here saying that, okay, use this. And it's actually pulling the key that I already stored for myself in the readme file here. This one. We can also find this from RevenueCat dashboard really easily. So we go to the APIs key section and we go to the public API key, show key. And the thing with here is that because this is a public API key, you can just hard code this in your app if you want, or you can put it in an environment variable. If user gets access to this key, it's all right. Like the thing they can do with this is that they could build an app which uses the same key, and if someone purchases something with that app, you would get money from that. So there's no point in trying to hide this. Unlike, for example, the secret API keys, never put those in the mobile apps itself. The same goes for the Android version, that just keep this stored. And here, I'm now putting just a single API key. You could also do like platform OS and then check if it's iOS or Android. And based on that, use a different key. Because for Android, you do need a different public API key than for iOS. But in this case, because we're just going to do the configuration for iOS, we're going to do this. Purchases configure is actually a static method. So we can technically just call it like this. And if we now go here, oh, actually, probably easier to do it like initialize RevenueCat, saying that it's asynchronous, but it's not actually. And for some reason, it wants to do the web thing. This is not needed. I don't know why Cursor wants to add that there constantly. And we do this. So now we have gonna make this a little bit smaller. We're gonna save that. Oh, interesting. Gonna have to check what's going on wrong there. No, it's correct. Good. So we have a use effect called on the root layout, which calls purchases configure. This is not asynchronous, so that's not actually needed. If there's an error, we get failed to initialize RevenueCat. And then we just call that in the use effect. And once we've done that, we actually start to get a lot of like logs in our, so this is the Expo server running. So we can see that, okay, we're getting some warnings that some products are configured but are not in App Store Connect yet. That's fair, because I think we might have made the yearly subscription but didn't like add everything, for example, the screenshots and whatnot. It's also saying that ready to submit, but requires you to take action in App Store Connect for using it in production purchases. So that just means that it needs to be approved by Apple. And same goes for the yearly subscription, missing metadata. It says also offering issues is in ready to submit state. It's giving us warning just in case we're getting close to like pushing our app to production, just to check this. If you've already submitted one version of your app for Apple and they've approved that, you won't get these warnings. But during development, because you haven't yet submitted anything, you will get this. But then it will give you a log that, okay, it called something, and hopefully give you cat emojis with heart eyes. Like, for example, stored products, I hope this is big enough. Stored products request received response, stored products request finished, and offerings updated from the network. So everything went pretty well. We got some products. So we now know that we have successfully configured RevenueCat. So next thing is then, of course, to make this subscribe button work, which is also pretty easy. So we're going to go to the index file. So this is the mountain views. As you can see, it's updating automatically. This is the view that we're currently looking at. And we have here the button. There's the handle subscribe. We've added that already. Now, Cursor is trying to ask us to implement the paywall. I'm just going to do it by hand. So we're going to need to import from Purchases UI. Now, the other package that we installed, Purchases UI. And that has a method called present paywall. And this is an asynchronous method, so we have to await it. And we have to do this. We don't have to pass it any arguments. We could technically, if we look at present paywall, we can see that we can actually pass it offering, display close button, and font family. So for example, if we have custom fonts in our paywall, we would have to pass them here. And if we wanted to use like other than the default offering that I configured, let's say that we wanted to present the paywall for returning customers or something, we could pass the name of the offering here so that they will be presented with the correct set of subscriptions. And we're going to just catch the error, and that's it. So this is the only thing it does. It checks present the paywall and then catch it. So now if I click this, it will show us the paywall that we built earlier. And that's technically all the code changes we need to do to enable purchases. If I now click continue, it will say signing to Apple account. On simulator, you can't really make purchases. So on Android emulator, you can make actual purchases, or not actual purchases, but you can purchase things, and they will be like if you purchase a monthly subscription, it will recur every 5 minutes and then end after 30 minutes. So it's like it's sped up, but it goes through, and you can check that as if the user actually had a subscription. If you want to test this like in real case, you need a device. So you need to run from your Expo app on your device and do the purchase there. It won't like take any money from you. And even if you submit your app to beta testing or test flight, for example, users will be able to subscribe, but no money will be deducted from them. So subscriptions only go through with real money, real currency, once they've been approved by Apple and the user downloads that app from App Store or Play Store in either cases. Otherwise, you can always test it and no money will be deducted. But because this is not because this is simulator, I can't unfortunately purchase now anything. But we can, for example, okay, it says that purchase was canceled. That's expected because I closed the model, so that RevenueCat considered that an error message that should be handled in some case. For example, that if you showed this paywall to a user and they were going through a flow, you would want to catch that error that they didn't actually end up purchasing, and for example, navigate them to a different page so that they don't end up getting access to the things that they weren't supposed to. To show you a little bit how the paywalls work, how the paywall editor works. So get all wonderful mountain pictures. Just gonna say it's that. We're gonna publish the changes. We're gonna, might be that it already works. It doesn't work. So we need to refresh the app. So as if you were starting the app from scratch again. And now when we open the paywall, we get all wonderful mountain pictures. All right. So that turned out to be, I'm really running out of screen estate here. So I hope this is not too confusing. There was one question. Oh yeah, 2 questions. I can take these on the before we look at how to actually check if the user has subscriptions. So what are the most useful RevenueCat features for indie developers? I would say that there's a bunch of them. So if we actually go here to RevenueCat, you have, for example, charts, which are way better than what Apple provides. So you can see like how many active subscriptions you have, how are they people converting. You can see like which came from new customers. You can like customize these views really well on like what is like what kind of data you want to see and understand how your customers are actually behaving. We also, because when you initialize the RevenueCat SDK, we track the users. So in this case, well, there are no users because I haven't purchased anything. I could go here and I could see that there's 1 new customer. So we do record the customers even in test account. I've had 2 active customers today. So because I built the app originally early in the day and now this one. And you can like get information about the customers. If you go here, you can see some data about them. You can even, in some cases, explore the customers. Let's go here. Well, okay, it's sandbox data, so it doesn't actually show that. No purchases yet. But the thing is, you could also explore customers and see like attributes, like you can store attributes, for example, that, hey, this customer bought this subscription, or this user is using it on this and this device. So you can do a lot of targeting. And with targeting, we mean that you can do like segmentation. So you can select that, okay, for certain countries, show this offering. If they came from Play Store, show them with paywall or feature paywall and all kinds of things. So you can do these like that target with certain different type of paywalls, different type of products offerings. Make it so that your app is always giving the best kind of an option for the customer to get them to subscribe to your app. You can also do experiments. So you can, for example, build 2 different paywalls and test which one of them is more likely to make the customer pay. That's also included in for free. We also have this thing called Customer Center. So, for example, let's say the user has subscribed, they don't know like what has happened, why is the person missing or whatever. You can add things to your customer. So this one can be presented in the app, and they can find help from there very easily. So you can customize that like completely. Also, like once your app has like subscriptions, one of the things that you end up doing managing a lot is churn. So at some point, users will stop subscribing to your app. Maybe they don't find it useful enough anymore or something else. So you want to get them back. And for that, we have a lot of things. So we can, for example, detect when user unsubscribes. And you can, for example, log their email in the app and build an automation. So we have these integrations. You can build an automation, like a webhook, for example, that, okay, they churned out. So now send them an email to come back. And let's see if I actually have it here. So I actually wrote an article about this not too long ago. Just find it somewhere. That's me. Yeah, okay. This one, for example. This is one of that uses like webhooks integration from RevenueCat. So you can build, for example, that, okay, when something happens, in case of this, we're talking about Blinkist paywall, which is this kind of paywall, where you get access to certain features. And then like 7 days later, you have a trial for 7 days. You get to try it. And like 2 days before your subscription recurs again, let's see if there's actually, I think there's a video. Yeah, there, this is a better image. Day 5, you get notified by email that your trial is ending. And then day 7, you will actually be charged on this day. To build this automation that you send an email, you don't have to have a backend service, because with us, you can just, with RevenueCat, you can just build a webhook. And point is so that it will send this to Zapier, which is an automation platform, and make it so that Zapier will automatically send email. So that's like a no-code tool for automating a lot of things. And we have a bunch of different integrations like Firebase. You can store stuff there. Attribution, you can know, for example, which ads got the user to like download your app and buy it, and then communications. So there's like a bunch of things that you can hook this into to automate what happens when your user subscribes. All right, another question. What are the most common mistakes developers make when setting up in purchases for the first time? I would say that the most common is trying to build those yourself, though. So they actually usually turn out to be way more complicated than you thought them to be. But with our SDK, it's like very simple to get started and do it with those. Another thing is just like, I'm gonna look at it like next is handling the entitlements. So in this case, for example, if we go here and we go to the settings, we can see the free, you are not subscribed to premium plan. Thing is, RevenueCat has a way to see, here we are, to do check subscription status. Let's see actually if cursor automatically completes this. Probably, yeah. Okay. I have a use state here that says is subscribed, and we can actually save that and just see that. Okay. In way of how RevenueCat actually checks if a customer has subscriptions is to call purchases, get customer info, and let's just log it then in case. Okay, maybe it's a little bit easier to read. Okay, now. So this is what it returns: customer info, all expiration dates, original app user ID. There's a bunch of information. And if they had, for example, subscribed to something, we would see in the entitlement section in the all that they've subscribed to these and these entitlements. And we can then use those to check. So for example, in this, it's checking active subscriptions. If that were to have anything, we would consider the user to be subscribed. So very simple to check if a user has active subscription. One thing that you like developers often get wrong is that they store this information from this in local state. So for example, you're using context in React or using Yotai or whatever Redux, whatever is your state management. You don't have to do that because RevenueCat SDK automatically catches this information. So you can call this as many times as you want in your app, in your parts. It will always be up to date with the most up-to-date information. And it's actually better to call it instead of storing it local store because, for example, this gets updated if user unsubscribes and comes back to the app. We will know that RevenueCat will update and tell you that the user has actually unsubscribed. Or, for example, when their subscription ends and you call this, we will automatically know that the information is up to date. And now we can technically just like, let's make this so that it actually thinks that this user is subscribed, which would just be that, okay, this one, you're now it's subscribed. It's going to complain about this, but a bit actually, if that would be better. But the thing is like, you only need to check the active subscriptions, or in this case, it's also saying that active entitlements, active premium. We could change that as well. This actually works as well. It just needs to be is active like this. Oh, that's way better. So that it actually undefined turns to correct value. We just need to check that the active entitlements for the premium, if that is active, then the user has that subscription. And we can call that in all parts of the UI, always to check if the user is subscribed. That's like, as you can see, like the code changes that we need to do, if we look at the README, you can see that they're very small, very simple. So first, you initialize the RevenueCat SDK. I'm going to delete because we don't need the web check. We do support web now. That's an old part of code that was originally required if you were running RevenueCat React Native SDK on the web version, but it's no longer. Now we just support web subscriptions directly as well. You need to configure the purchases package with your API key, which you can find from RevenueCat SDK. Then you need to present your paywall, so-called basically present paywall. You can check if user ended up purchasing and give, for example, alert that, hey, they actually purchased something. Or you could, for example, use this to set a state that user was subscribed and navigate them to somewhere else. And then you have to check the entitlements that check subscription or check entitlements, call the get customer info and check if they have active subscriptions. And based on that, set them subscribe or not subscribe in your app state, or just show different parts of the UI. And that's all you need to monetize your app on the code side. So the code side itself is very simple. You're going to be spending some time configuring App Store and Play Store, but you can do that if you're familiar with it in like 15 minutes even. The code part itself will take like 5 minutes. So technically it's possible to do subscriptions on iOS in less than 20 minutes. I know because I've done it. Yeah, I guess that's all on that part. So if you now have questions about this, all the materials, I'll try to put them somewhere. I'll ask later where to put them, but they're pretty simple.
Yeah, thanks. Does anyone have any follow-up questions?
I guess not.
You did
No,
such a
it's
good
a
job
lot to think,
explaining
but
everything.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also a lot of information. So I really suggest looking at our documentation. We also have sample labs for most things, like we have for Flutter, React Native, everything. You can just like see those. Yeah, like our documentation is like, I would say, I've written parts of it, so I'm not sure if I should say it, but I think it's one of the best that I've come across. So you should be able to get everything configured with it. And we have very like good support. So just go and ask either our forums or our just email us directly, and we'll help you set up your app. And if nothing else, you can also contact me. I can jump on a call with you and help you figure out how to get RevenueCat SDK integrated into your app and how to get your app to start making money.
Thank you, Perttu.
Thank you.
A passion for showing developers how easy it is to monetize their app is really inspiring, and I hope that everyone will try to build a mobile app because it looks really simple to integrate RevenueCat SDK.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to show one more thing because I completely forgot about this. So I showed the Bolt app. If you're like not that familiar with mobile development, you could try that with Bolt pretty easily. And I've actually written about that. So if I go here, yeah, I'm gonna find my own blog post. I have this, how to add subscriptions to Bolt generated Expo app. This basically goes parts of what I just showed you. So there's actually this thing that, hey, I'm building a mobile app for browsing cat pictures. You can just copy this thing and paste it here. If you look at, actually, no, it's just, okay, I need to move that a bit. There's app there. That's the icon that I'm looking for. But for some reason, I'm not getting, no, it's too aggressive on that. But Bolt, why can't I actually edit this? Oh, it seems that Bolt has just frozen. So there's this prompt. I actually gave Bolt the instructions for this. So I want a simple Expo app. It should show 3 pictures of mountains, have a button, use Expo version, whatnot. You don't like the app that I just showed. I didn't write a single line of code other than the ones that like the RevenueCat parts. The other ones are basically from this tutorial on how to do subscriptions on a Bolt app. So it's really easy. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to show is the shipathon thing. So if you haven't already consider joining shipathon. There's still a lot of time until like end of September to build an app for iOS, Android, or Mac OS, and add the RevenueCat SDK to it, and hopefully get your app on like Times Square and get all kinds of we have lots of money awards, for example, and we have a lot of different categories. There's like build and grow your app, or provide the greatest social good, or best vibes and whatnot. So like the chances are very real if you end up building like something really nice, which is really easy nowadays with all the tools that there are. Yeah, I can send the link to the article. Actually, easiest one is probably to just share this. You can find it from here. Yeah, that's how. Apparently, there's an umlaut in my name, but apparently it's also in the URL for some reason. And so that's why it shows up like that. But you can also just go to the RevenueCat blog, and I think I'm like, yeah, I'm here. And if you're wondering like how to actually like how should you build stuff, how you should build a mobile app, I've written 2 articles like how to win Shipathon by coming up with an idea, and there's another one also like how to build fast, how to build a mobile app fast. But yeah,